So 明昧在为的真真热心，体美根被万倍长表扬。康健开被自根宗卡巴楼上茶杯沙布拉索瓦的明媚在为的真真热心。体美根被万倍长表扬。康健开被自根宗卡巴楼上茶杯沙布拉索瓦的明媚在为的真真热心。体美根被万倍长表扬。康健开被自根宗卡巴楼上茶杯沙布拉索瓦的明媚在为的真真热心。体美根被万倍长表扬。康健开被自根宗卡巴楼上茶杯沙布拉索瓦的明媚在为的真真热心。体美根被万倍长表扬。康健开被自根宗卡巴楼上茶杯沙布拉索瓦的明媚在为的真真热心。体美根被万倍长表扬。康健开被自根宗卡巴楼上茶杯沙布拉索瓦的明媚在为的真真热心。体美根被万倍长表扬。康健开被自根宗卡巴楼上茶杯沙布拉索瓦的明媚在为的真真热心。体美根被万倍长表扬。康健开被自根宗卡巴楼上茶杯沙布拉索瓦的明媚在为的真真热心。体美 没见被王波将表扬，康健开被主见宗卡巴。楼上茶杯，下不拉索瓦的，妹妹在为的见见热心，提妹见被王波将表扬。康健开被主见宗卡巴，楼上茶杯，下不拉索瓦的，明媚在为的见见热心，提妹见被王波将表扬，康健开被主见宗卡巴，楼上茶杯，下不拉索瓦的，明媚在为的见见热心，提妹见被王波将表扬，康健开被主见宗卡巴，楼上茶杯，下不拉索瓦的，妹妹在为的见见热心，提妹见被王波将表扬，康健开被主见宗卡巴，楼上茶杯，下不拉索瓦的，妹妹在为的见见热心，提妹见被王波将表扬，康健开被主见宗卡巴，楼上茶杯，下不拉索瓦的，妹妹在为的见见热心，提妹见被王波将表扬，康健开被主见宗卡巴，楼上茶杯，下拉索瓦的。Good morning.
นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอะเสวนาจะภาลานังบันติตานันจะเสวนาบูชาจะปูชนียานังเอตัมมังคลมุตตมังเอกัสมิงสมเยนาโทโมคัลลานันจะกัสสปังคิลาเนทุกิเตทิสวะโพชังเคสัตตเตสยิเตจตังอภินันทิตวารโรคามุจิงสุตังคะเนเตนะสัจวัชเชนะโสติเตโหตุสัพพทา
Thank you.
Xin đại chúng ta trì tụng kinh Bát Nhã. Nhắm vô mở điện. Nhanh lên chuông. Vô thượng thầm thâm vi diệu pháp bá thiên dạng kiếp nan tao ngộ đất thọ trì nguyện dạy Như Lai chân thiệt nghĩa. Nam mô Bát Nhã Hội Thượng Phật Tạng. Nam mô Bát Nhã Hội Thượng Phật Bồ Tát. Nam mô Bát Hội Thượng Phật Bồ Tát. Ma Bát Nhã Ba La Mật Đa Tâm Kinh. Bồ Tát hành tâm Bát Nhã Ba La Mật Đa. Thời chiếu kiến ngũ quẩn giải không độ. Nhất thiết khổ ách xá lợi tử sắc. Bất dị không không bất dị sắc. Không tức thị sắc thọ tưởng hành thức diệt phục. Như thị xá lợi tử thị chư pháp công tương. Bất sanh bất diệt bất câu bất tịnh bất tăng bất giảm thị cố. Vô sắc vô thọ tưởng hành thức. Vô nhãn nhị tỷ thiệt thân ý. Vô sắc tinh hương vị sung pháp. Vô nhãn giới nại chi. Vô ý thức giới. Vô minh diệt vô vô minh tận nại chi. Vô lão tử diệt vô lão tử tận. Vô khổ tập diệt đạo. Vô trí diệt vô đắc dĩ. Vô sở đắc. Rồi Bát Nhã Ba La Mật Đa. Cố tâm vô ngoái ngại. Vô ngoái ngại cố vô hữu khủng bố. Viễn ly điên đạo mộng tưởng. Cố canh niết bàn tam thế chư Phật. Y Bát La Mật Đa. Cố đắc A Nậu Đa La Tam Miệu Tam Bồ Đề. Cố tri Bát Nhã Ba La Mật Đa. Thì đại thần chú. Thì đại minh chú. Thì vô thường chú. Đẳng đẳng chú năng trừ những thiết khổ chân thiệt bất hư. Cố thuyết Bát Nhã Ba La Mật Đa. Chú tức tuyết chú viết yết đế Ba La yết tăng yết đế bồ đề tát bà yết đế bà la yết đế la tăng yết đế bồ đề tát bà.
Being saying this excellent old child, it is just so it should be just so one must practice from perfection wisdom, just as you have it, or even the disciples will rejoice at the blessed one after these words. When we have a look at the Shwara, the Bodhisattva great being, along with the entire assembly and the wills of God's human Shwara Gandharvas, all rejoiced and hailed what the Buddha had said. So today, this is the second day of our Dharma discourse. First of all, I had missed saying this yesterday. This is a homage to the perfection of wisdom, the mother of all the Buddhas of the three times, past, present, and future, which is indescribable, ineffable, beyond conception. And the mantra of the Heart Sutra, Samgate Bodhi Swaha. This is a verse of salutation from Abhisamaya Alankara by Maitreya. Paying homage to the mother of the Shravakas and particular Buddhas, the Bodhisattvas, and the Buddhas. And then the recitation of the verses of salutation from Master Nagarjuna's Mulla Madhyama Kakarika. So yesterday we did the general explanation of the Dharma, and today we are going to go through the text by Master Nagarjuna, a commentary on the awakening mind. I'll try to explain as much as I can. When I give this kind of Dharma discourse, I do not present myself as being the teacher sitting on a high throne, and when I give introductory teachings to Buddha Dharma, what I do is I consider this to be like having a class with you, and so like being in a. As I explained the text, and I also thought that we would do some question and answers. We will have a question and answer session because there are many interpreters. There shouldn't be any difficulty in translating. So bring your questions, ask me your questions, so that this would be like having a class with me. So I thought this would be good to do. So keep this in mind. So this text by Master Nagarjuna, a commentary on the awakening mind, It begins with the verses, the root text, which is in the beginning of the text. It has been stated, devoid of all real entities and so forth. That verse comes from Guhya Samaja Tantra, the root tantra of Guhya Samaja. And so, with regard to Guhya Samaja Tantra, Master Nagarjuna had practiced it and taught it. And he wrote the Pindavidhi, which is generation stage, text on generation stage of Guhya Samaja. And then there is another text which is called Dosse. And then Master Nagabodhi, who was a disciple of Master Nagarjuna, wrote the stages of presentation, or Namsharimpa, and so which goes through, this text goes through the three transforming the three states into three kayas. And then with regard to the completion stage of Guhya Samaja, Master Nagarjuna has written the 5 stages. And then Master Arya Deva, who was a disciple of Master Nagarjuna, wrote, Arya Deva wrote, Judy, and Chandrakirti wrote Dönsel, the bright lamp. So these texts teach about Tantra in general, and particularly the highest Yoga Tantra teachings. So these are great texts of wisdom, very important texts on Tantra. So with regard to Master Guhya Samaja Tantra, Master Nagarjuna and his disciples have particularly focused on the Guhya Samaja Tantra. So with regard to the text, the Bodhichitta Vivarana, I have received the reading transmission of it from the former Gaden Tripa, Gyabji Rizong Rinpoche, who is sitting right to the right of His Holiness on the throne. So in Sanskrit, or the Indian language, the title is Bodhichitta Vivarana. Master Chandrakshita, because since during the time of Tibetan Emperor Songtsen Gampo, Tibetans already devised our script, the written form of the language, and therefore when Master Rakshita came to Tibet in the 8th century, he advised the Tibetans to translate the Buddhist texts into Tibetan, our own language, and this, according to Master Chandrakshita's advice, and so at this advice, the Tibetans undertook the translation of the Indian text, Buddhist texts, and there was a separate department of translation set up at the Samye monastery at that time in the 8th century. And so most of the classic or the great treatises of Buddhism were translated into Tibetan. And so the Tibetan our forebears also sincerely undertook or heeded Master Chandrakshita's advice. And there are many commentaries, sub-commentaries written on the Indian text and the Buddha's words by Tibetan scholars. And so our ancestors for centuries have been preserved, promoted, administered the teaching of the Buddha in our land. In the past, we had very little contact with outside world, but since we became exiles, our contact with the wider world has become, quite wide. And so there are different texts on Buddhism in Chinese, English, Russian, French, German, Korean, and many other languages. So we have many books being published in different languages. And so, at the advice of Master Chandrakshita, the great abbot, at his advice, we, the Tibetans, have preserved the scriptural and the experiential teaching of the Buddha. So, this tradition that we have preserved so far is like a treasure of the whole world. And then particularly the Buddhist countries, and we, the people in these countries, we are the follower of the same teacher, Buddha Shakyamuni. And so, with regard to the teaching, we have the practice of the training of morality, training of single-point concentration, meditative concentration, and wisdom. And so these are basic to the teaching of the Buddha. And we have here the followers of the Pali tradition from Thailand, and who also practice the three trainings: morality, concentration, and wisdom. So, as I said yesterday, with regard to the Sanskrit tradition that has come down from Nalanda Monastic University, there is emphasis on mainly focusing on the study of logic. And in China, as I mentioned yesterday, also the Xuanzang or Tangsan Lama brought Buddhism from India to China. But it seems that the Chinese Buddhist tradition has not focused much on logic and epistemology, whereas in Tibet we have done that. And there was the earlier and later dissemination of Buddhism in Tibet, and during the later dissemination, which also is called the Sarma tradition, the new translation school or tradition, there is emphasis, there's great and a wide practice or tradition of studying logic, and particularly Master Tsongkhapa studied in different traditions at that time, and then he founded the Ryugyedempa tradition. And so the entire Tibet, Yuzhang, Dotu, Dome, in all these areas of Tibet, the best study of logic and philosophy is within the Gelug tradition. So the study of classic texts has become widely spread in Tibet. What else is there to say? And then the Indian texts, such as the words of the Buddha and the exegetical treatises written by Indians, So in all of these translations from Indian languages, we have the title given in Sanskrit, except for a few texts which were translated from Chinese, where the Chinese title is given. And so in Tibetan, we have the teachings, the entire teaching of the Buddha, including the Tantra, so which were extant in Sanskrit and Pali as well. And so the title in Tibetan is Changju Semki Delpa. So here, the Bodhichitta, Changju Sem, refers to, while the shared bodhicitta, which is taught in the Sutra and Tantrayanas, is set as the basis. As I explained yesterday, the word the Buddha uttered after his enlightenment, right after his enlightenment, where he said that he found the nectar like dharma, which is profound, peaceful, free of fabrication, luminous and unconditioned, and so forth. So here, the bodhicitta does not refer to mainly that of the conventional bodhicitta, which is the mind focused on enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. But here, this bodhicitta refers to within the luminous mind, clear light mind, which has the degrees of subtlety. This refers to the subtlest, innate, spontaneously arisen clear light mind. Because the gross states of mind do not become turn into the Buddha's mind as such. So at the end of the Bodhisattva path, the practitioners of Tantra go through the process of dissolution of the three visions of a whitish appearance and so forth, and then they actualize of the spontaneous, innate, clear-light mind, which serves as the antidote to the final residue or the final, the last sort of defilement within the mind. And then after overcoming them, the person becomes fully enlightened, a Buddha. And so the ultimate clear-light mind, which is focused or absorbed in emptiness directly, that serves as the antidote. So that is what is referred by the Changchup Sem, or the Bodhicitta here. So because it's a commentary on that kind of clear light mind, it is called the commentary. And then there's a homage to glorious Vajrasattva. Vajrasattva also referring to Vajradhara. So within the teaching of the Buddha, there are those teachings which the Buddha gave, and in the form of a monk, and also arising as manifestation of deities with concerts, taking the desire into the path, and so through that practice, the gross states of mind and the energies are stopped, and then the clear light, the innate clear light mind is manifested or actualized. So, of course, at the time of death, ordinarily also we do go through this process of the clear light mind becoming manifest, but after the third dissolution of the near attainment, in which the earlier part, during the earlier part, there is some memory, but in the latter part, there is no memory whatever. And then the clear light mind manifests at the time of death for ordinary persons, but that doesn't serve as a path yet. But through the practice, meditators, what they do is they are able to manifest or actualize this clear light within the heart chakra. So here the traditional texts refer to Nyingka, which means at the heart, but I don't think this is talking about the physical heart as such, but at the heart chakra, at the center of which, in the central channel, the two bodhicittas, or the drops, red and white drops, gather, and then so at the time of conception, for example, the two subtle drops gather at the heart, and from there it spreads to the other parts of the body. And then there is the 80 conceptions and so forth. And then at the time of dissolution, at the time when we die, there is this dissolution process of the elements, the water, earth, water, fire, and so forth. And then through the power of the meditation of the meditator, they're able to actually stop the flow of these 80 conceptions, or the whitish increase and so forth. And so during their lifetime, they would be able to practice where they could bring up or actualize this clear light, innate clear light mind, and as a because of the influence of their meditation throughout their life, at the time of death, they are able to actually go through this process while dying, so that they go through the dissolution of the elements, and then the whitish appearance, reddish increase, and the blackish near attainment, even at the later part, where ordinary people are not able to remember, have no memory, but they can still sustain their memory and actualize the clear light. And it's like just as during the time of sleep, it is said that when you are able to actually turn sleep into virtuous practice. So it's Judge Rinzong Rinpoche was offered some tea, but before he took it, one of the attendants came and took it away. So they're going to bring a hot tea for him. And so there are four mental factors, as it's called, which are said to be variables, variable mental factors. One of them is sleep. So So a meditator who is able to sustain this kind of meditation can also make the clear light mind actualize at the time when they go through the sleep process as well, and then they can actualize this clear light mind, which can focus on emptiness as well. So even at the basic level, this can happen, and then during while the practitioner is on the path, they can go through this process and develop single-pointed concentration, especially during the subtle generation stage, like the person, the meditator, can remain in single-pointed concentration for a day. And then there are different points in the body which are emphasized in different tantras. For example, in the Kala Chakra Tantra, the empty body is focused or at the mid-eyebrow, and in other tantras, there's focus on meditation whereby the meditator focuses at the heart chakra and so forth. And so, during this process, they are able to go through the dissolution process and actualize the ultimate or the final subjective clear light mind. So that's innermost subtle mind, which if you can actually develop it into a path realizing emptiness, then it can serve as the antidote to the subtlest obscuration of knowledge. Therefore, Master Guinken Jayang Sheba says, though both Tantra and Sutra and Tantra teach about the main defilement, but the Tantra shows the most supreme means or the antidote to that. Although both also teach emptiness, the subjective mind, which serves as an antidote, is taught in the Tantra. And so this is the subtlest, innermost subtle mind, which is developed or which arises as a mind or consciousness realizing emptiness, and then serve as an antidote to the subtlest, defilement. So at the end of the Bodhisattva path, the Bodhisattva develops this final antidote and the luminous mind, which realizes emptiness, and which serves as antidote to the subtlest, the final defilement. And then at the second moment, after that, the person becomes fully enlightened. And then there is a homage by the translator. And then next comes the verse, the lines from Samaja Tantra. It has been stated, devoid of all real entities, utterly discarding all objects and subjects, such as aggregates, elements, and sense fields. Due to the sameness of selflessness of all phenomena, one's mind is primarily unborn. It is in the nature of emptiness. And so, devoid of all entities refers to for example, the non-Buddhist tradition asserts a self which is single, permanent, and autonomous. So whatever they assert, or whatever we assert as having some kind of an objective existence, cannot be held when you are argued through reason, and therefore this devoid of all entities means that. And utterly discarding all objects. Aggregates, such as aggregates, elements, and sense fields. So when you actually assert that there is a self which lacks the characteristics of the aggregates, which means the aggregates are impermanent, changing, but the self is unchanging, then that is the view of the non-Buddhist tradition, asserting a self which is single, permanent, and autonomous. Whereas the even amongst the Buddhist tradition, philosophical schools, there are those who could still assert a self which has the same characteristics as the aggregates. And so the aggregates and so forth are the basis for the designation of a person. So at the Bodhisattva, when they reach the seventh Bodhisattva ground, it is said that they become more superior through that of intelligence than the Shravakas or the Shravaka Arhats and Pratyeka Buddha Arhats. So which shows that even the Shravakas, the Arhats and Arya beings within the Shravaka tradition do realize emptiness. So as long as there is grasping or clinging at some kind of an objective existence in the aggregate, to that extent one cannot realize emptiness fully, as I explained yesterday too. So the aggregates, elements and scent fields, which are the basis of a designation of a persons, do not exist the way they appear to us. In the Pali tradition too, or the Sanskrit tradition, there's the explanation of objects of knowledge and the knowledge as the subjective mind, which understands them or cognizes them, and then there's a presentation of the 5 aggregates, the 12 sense fields, and so forth. Whereas the lower schools of tenet do assert some form of objective existence. So the self or Atman designated or asserted by the non-Buddhist traditions has no basis, and therefore the text is devoid of all real entities. The Buddha also teaches that the form is like a bubble and so forth. Due to the sameness of selflessness of all phenomena means that nothing whatever, all the appearing things do not have any essential nature or existence. So these gross or subtle states of mind cannot have any essential existence. If you take the instance of a mind, a moment of a mind, we can talk about the future, present, future, and past. So even in the case of what we call present moment of mind, half of it's gone, past, and half yet to come. And so you can actually understand this if you think through. So just as the matter, also when you break it up into the past and the different moments, you cannot actually pinpoint as something as being this or that. Half of the present moment is gone and half is yet to arise. Similarly, with regard to the mind or mind stream, which is posited on a series of moments of mind. So mind or consciousness is said to be a mere experience. So just as matter we cannot point our finger at anything being a matter when you actually divide it or dissect it into the moments. Likewise, the mind cannot be found. And one's mind is primarily unborn. It is in the nature of emptiness. Means that the objects of our mind do not have any essential existence. Likewise, the mind, the subjective experience, cannot have any essential existence. And the innate clear-light mind, according to the Goya Samaja Tantra, there are the 4 empty states mentioned. So here, emptiness does not refer to the lack of independent existence, but it refers to the absence of the adventitious states of mind, or the coarser states of mind. So Xiantong, philosophical view of the Jonangpas, could also make sense if you interpret in this way. So there is the first empty state, the second, third, and fourth empty states. And so these 4 empty states refers to being empty of the appearance, the whitish appearance, and the reddish increase, and so forth. And at the end, there is all empty state at the dissolution of after the dissolution of near attainment. And so in the Xiantong's school, there is mention of things. The clear-light mind is referred to. There is this presentation or explanation of the completion stage with of the ultimate clear-light mind. And then there is there are the completion stage, and there's the within which there's the ultimate completion stage, and then the conventional ones. So the ultimate refers to the clear light, innate clear light mind, and then the conventional completion stage refers to that of the illusory body, and so these two are brought together in union. So in the Chonang tradition, they do explain about the conventional being, the conventional things being devoid of self nature, and then the ultimate ultimate reality or truth being devoid of conventional things. So when you explain emptiness in that state, there could be some logical fallacies. So the subject matter of this text is the ultimate clear light mind. With regard to emptiness, which is taught, which is a shared teaching of both Sutrayana and Tantrayana, so a mind which is freed from that of those are the defilements, the afflictive mental afflictions, is, of course, a very special state of mind, but still, the arhats of the Shravaka Dhyana have not overcome the subtle defilement of the cognitive obscurations. And so, for that to happen, one should actually have Bodhichitta, which combined with that of the ultimate, clear light. And so the first passage, a paragraph after the verse, just as the Buddhas and so forth, through to those who have not thoroughly transcended sorrow, is read. So in order that I may save those who are not saved, free those who are not free, relieve those who are not relieved, and help thoroughly transcend sorrow, those who have not thoroughly sorrow, refers to overcoming the suffering of suffering, changeable suffering, and so forth. And finally, overcoming and reaching that state of enlightenment. Have you taken your tea? Or do you have? As I said yesterday, the view of emptiness and cherishing others over oneself are really great things, which gives you true peace of mind and also which combats the unruly mind that we have directly. So, with regard to altruism, thinking of caring for others' well-being is really helpful in one's own peace of mind. And then with regard to emptiness, of course, even in quantum physics, the idea that things have no objective existence is helpful in helping subside your negative emotions based on the appearance of things as if they have some objective existence. And so when you think along these lines, it's really going to be helpful to others if you are able to explain it to them. So to the best of one's ability, what this text says is that you have to serve others. Those bodhisattvas who practice by means of the secret mantra after having generated awakening mind in terms of its conventional aspect in the form of an aspiration must then produce the ultimate awakening mind through the force of meditative practice. I shall therefore explain its nature. So Master Nagarjuna then writes this verse of homage. Bowing to the glorious Vajra holder who embodies the awakening mind, I shall explain here the meditative practice of the awakening mind that destroys cyclic existence. So because this text teaches the profound teaching found in the highest yoga tantra, this verse this homage is given to Vajra holder. The Buddhas maintain the awakening mind to be not obscured by such conceptions as consciousness of self, aggregates, and so on. It is always characterized by emptiness. So by using the clear light mind to meditate on emptiness. So during the process, in the process of developing this mind, clear-light mind, one can meditate on emptiness using the understanding of the philosophical tradition of Chitta Matras. But as the mind becomes subtler and subtler, then when a meditator reaches that of the isolation of mind, it is said that even a Chittamatra philosopher kind of transforms or into a Madhyamaka philosopher at that point. So the self, the aggregate, and so on. So of course, within the Buddhist tradition, there are those who do assert a form of self which is has the same characteristics as the aggregates. For example, the Chittamatras do assert a self from within the mind. So when a person is fully absorbed in emptiness, because there is nothing that they can actually say that there is a person there, therefore within the sixth mind, then they go to assert that there is an alaya vijan, or the fundamental consciousness. So the Chittamatras following scripture do assert such being on the basis of that alaya vijan. And then when we study Abhisamaya Alamkara in its commentaries, the Savatantraka Madhyamakas also are said to assert a self, which is the sixth mind. But Master Chandrakirti says that when you analyze, investigate into the things or self through the sevenfold reasoning and so forth, like the chariot, nothing could be pinpointed as being this or that. But then a self and chariots do exist by way of convention, by way of designation, through the renown of the worldly conventions. And so they're not saying that things do not exist at all. But for example, if I talk about having pain in my hand, of course the pain is there, but when you actually try to look for the pain and search for it within the hand, of course you cannot find anything that you can point your finger at as being the pain. And so similarly, it is the case with anything. Like the table in front of me, the hand in my hand, etc., cannot be found at all when you search for their identity. And therefore, Master Nagarjuna says, what is dependent through what originates through dependence is said to be empty, and that is said to be designated, and that is a middle way. Now, there is no phenomena which is not dependent, and therefore there is no phenomena which is not empty. And so what this means is that things do not exist the way they appear to us. So what this means is that in the Heart Sutra, there is the mention of all the five aggregates too should be seen as being empty of inherent existence or nature. And so what that means is that things cannot be found when you search for their identity within them, and therefore form is empty. Form cannot be found when you search for it in its identity within it. And emptiness is form, because form can be designated on the basis of its dependence on other factors, and therefore it's not non-existent, but because the form does exist by way of worldly convention, therefore emptiness is form, and emptiness is not other than emptiness, form, and form too is not other than emptiness, which these two phrases refer to the fact that the emptiness and form, emptiness of the form and form itself are conceptually distinct, but by nature in the same. And so we all do recite the Heart Sutra. So the 5 aggregates also are without any self-existence. And form is empty, emptiness is form is not other than emptiness is not other than form too is not other than emptiness. And so this, from form is empty to through to empty, form too is not other than emptiness, we refer to this as the fourfold emptiness. And then later in the Heart Sutra, it is mentioned that the Buddhas of the 3 times too become enlightened, fully enlightened, based on this understanding. So how do we become a Buddha is shown or taught by this mantra that yatha gati gati paragati parasangati bodhiswaha. That yatha means it is like this, and gati, first gati refers to the path of accumulation, second gati refers to the path of application, and the paragati refers to the path of seeing emptiness directly, and then parasangati refers to the path of meditation, and bodhis refers to enlightenment. And so you go through this progression along the path and become enlightened. So this is attained when you train your mind to combat this ignorance, clinging to true existence in things and self. And thereby, as your clinging to this becomes, decreases, you go through the path of accumulation and so forth. Sakyamare. In Kyormulung, in Tibet or somewhere. Sakyamare. In any case, we're not sure about the place, but Tsongkhapa was in the prayer assembly, and during the recitation of the Heart Sutra, he was meditating on emptiness, and he was able to stay focused. And when the prayer was finished, he was still sitting there in meditation, and therefore that the pillar next to which he was sitting was called the pillar of concentration. So when you are able to develop this insight into emptiness, helped by the single-pointed concentration and develop this penetrative or the special insight, then you enter into the path of preparation, from the path of preparation or application, from the path of accumulation. And when you realize emptiness directly, you reach the path of seeing. And then when the next part of meditation, where you acquaint yourself with that direct experience of emptiness, and then when with the help of that wisdom realizing emptiness directly, you go through the bodhisattva grounds, And when you reach the path of, at the path of the seventh ground of bodhisattvas, you do away with all the negative emotions. And then from the eighth ground on to the eighth ground, and then from the eighth to the 10th ground, then you actually go through the process of overcoming the cognitive obscuration as well. And so for these, and then finally you become enlightened. So for these, the whole thing to happen, first you need to listen to the teachings, and then having heard the teaching and studied it, you should reflect on it so that you feel convinced that things do not exist the way they appear to us. Whereas the Savatantrika Madhyamakas down, they do assert some objectiveness in the things. Whereas the Prasangika Madhyamakas do not assert anything as having any objective existence at all. And so, with the appearance, the cognition of appearance does away with the extreme of existence, and then that of the realization of emptiness does away with the extreme of nihilism. So when you are asleep, you do dream, and in the dream you see horses and so forth. But when you wake up from the dream, all these things that appear has no existence. So similarly, things do appear as if they have some kind of objective independent existence, but they do not exist the way they appear to us, and therefore you have to know that how things appear to you as if they have some kind of objective existence is that object of negation, which you should confirm. And it is very important to understand that in the meditation on emptiness, this is what the seventh Dalai Lama has said. And so, having listened to the teaching and having heard the teaching on emptiness, you should reflect, think over and over again. And I also use in this meditation on emptiness the concept of what the quantum physicists also say, that I do not have the single-pointed concentration yet, but otherwise I aspire to reach that of the path of application or preparation. And so Master Tsongkhapa mentions the getting rid of this extreme view of permanence and getting rid through the appearance, and then getting rid of nihilism through the insight into emptiness. So of course, my brain and your brain are same. If some neuroscientists were to check, but Master Nagarjuna, of course, used his brain to analyze the teaching of the Buddha and meditated on it and reflected on it, and then he actually developed the experience of emptiness, and therefore from his experience he wrote the fundamental wisdom verses of the middle way. And to this text there are commentaries written by Buddha Palita and also by Master Chandra Kirti, and then and also Prasanapada, clear words. And Rinpoche Tsongkhapa wrote 5 great texts pertaining to this view of emptiness, the Madhyamaka philosophy, which are the great insight section of the great treatise of the stages of the path of enlightenment, and then and so forth. So Tsongkhapa mentions that the way things can exist could be two. Either that they could exist by way of objectively, or they could exist by way of dependence on others. And since they cannot exist objectively, they must exist by designation, and therefore one should direct one's mind, steer it towards that. So if you use the reasoning, the five-pronged reasoning and the seven-pronged reasoning and so forth to gain insight into emptiness, this statement by Master Tsongkhapa saying that you should steer your minds towards that is, in a sense, a kind of a desperation, an expression of his desperation, almost like swearing. So in any case, if you really contemplate these teachings on emptiness, you'll be able to see that so far in this samsaric existence, since time beginningless, we have become more or less servant of this grasping at some true existence. Whereas once you realize through these teachings, studying them, reflecting them on you will be able to actually turn the ground up and eradicate this clinging. You may feel like that. So when you study the Four Noble Truths, for example, it is you're going to really understand and gain insight or some kind of a conviction that the true cessation is possible, because ignorance, which grasps at the true independent existence in things, is totally distorted, a misconception which can be overcome through this understanding of emptiness. And then you'll be able to see that liberation and enlightenment are possible to attain. So the Chittamatras, the mind-only school, they do assert that mind or consciousness is real, whereas they reject any external existence of things. It is with the mind moistened by compassion. So His Holiness just jumped to verse number 11 and then 12, 13 and down. So there, in the philosophical traditions, there is mention of the sense consciousnesses like the visual perception arising with the aspect of the object and without the aspect of objects and so forth. So on this verse number 16, it says, neither atom or form exists, nor is sense organ elsewhere. Even more, no sense organ as agent exists. So the producer and the produced are utterly unsuited for production. Verse number 17 on page 20 in the book. So when you perceive something, an object, and some people say that it's good, some others say it's bad. So there are different perceptions according to individuals. So there are different ways of perceiving the objects. Verse number 19 and then 20. With respect to the same female body, three different notions are entertained by the ascetic, the lustful, and the wild dog, as a corpse, an object of lust or food. It's the sameness of the object that functions, if asserted. Is this not like being harmed in a dream? Between the dream and wakeful state, there is no difference insofar as the functioning of things is concerned. In terms of object and subject, whatever. So verse number 22 refers to, is an argument against the Chittamatras. In terms of object and subjects, whatever appears to the consciousness, apart from the cognition themselves, no external objects exist anywhere. So this is how the Chittamatras assert things to have no external existence, but that mind is real. And they say that whatever appears to our mind, these things, the objects, are mere reflection of the imprints left on the mind. And so the objects and the subjective mind are not different in nature, because the objects are the reflections of the mind, subjective mind itself, because they appear or they arise on the basis of the imprints on the mind. So there is no external object at all existing in the mode of entities. The very perceptions of individual consciousness arise as appearance of form. Just as a person whose mind is deluded sees magical illusions and mirages and the cities of Gandharva spirits, so too forms and so on are perceived. To overcome grasping at selfhood, the Buddha taught aggregates, elements, and so on, by abiding in the states of mind only. The beings of great fortune even renounced that teaching. So the reference of this state of mind only is in the sutra, where it mentions the three planes of existence are mind only. For those who propound consciousness only, this manifold world is established as mind only. What might be the nature of that consciousness? I shall now explain this very point. And so the Chittamatras reject any external existence, whereas the mind is truly existent. All of this is but one's mind. That which was stated by the able one is to alleviate the fear of childish. It is not a statement of a final truth. The imputed, the dependent, the consummate, they have only one nature in their own emptiness. And identities are constructed upon the mind. To those who delight in the great vehicle, the Buddha taught in brief selflessness and perfect equanimity, and that the mind is primordially unborn. The proponents of yogic practice assert that the purified mind is affected through mastery of one's own mind, and through utter revolution of its state is the sphere of its own reflexive nature. that which is past is no more. That which is yet to be is not obtained. As it abides in locus, it abides its locus, is utterly transformed. So how can there be such awareness as present in the present? Whatever it is, it's not what it appears. What it appears as. Whatever it appears as, it is not. Appears as it is not so. Consciousness is devoid of selfhood, yet consciousness has no other basis. By being close to the lodestone, an iron object swiftly moves forward. It possesses no mind of its own, yet it appears as if it does, and so forth. Goddess. We're on 36. So if it is considered that without a body there's no consciousness, you must explain it is this awareness that the object of one's own specific knowledge. By calling it specific awareness of itself, you are asserting it to be an entity. And having ascertained oneself and to help others ascertain, the learned proceeds excellently, always without error. So in order to help others, you need to give guidance and counsel to others. But without your knowledge of what you are going to tell others, there's no way you can help others. And therefore, in order to help others who are of varieties of mental disposition, you need to understand the different types of things, different teachings. The cognizer perceives the cognizable. Without the cognizable, there is no cognition. Therefore, why do you admit that neither object nor subject exists at all? The mind is but a mere name. Apart from its name, it exists as nothing. So all objects, everything is merely a name. So they are merely conventionally known. So view consciousness as a mere name. Name too has no intrinsic nature, neither within or likewise without, or somewhere in between the two. The conquerors have never found the mind, so the mind has the nature of an illusion. The distinction of colors, shapes, or that of object and subject, of female, male, female, neuter, the mind has not such fixed forms. In brief, the Buddha have never seen, nor will they ever see such a mind. So how can they see it as intrinsic nature, that which is devoid of intrinsic nature? Entity is a conceptualization. Absence of conceptualization, emptiness. Where conceptualization occurs, how can there be emptiness? The mind in terms of perceived and perceiver. This the Tathagatas have never seen. Where there is the perceived and the perceiver, there is no enlightenment. So devoid of characteristics and origination, devoid of substantive reality and transcending mind, space. Awakening mind and enlightenment possess the characteristics of non-duality. So with regards to Chunyi or Dharmata, space, the space, it could be understood in terms of emptiness as well as the empty state that I explained earlier, with regard to the mind, the subtle innate innermost mind. So you cannot just, as I received the transmission of the 7 treasuries of Longchen Rabjampa from Tushi Rinpoche, the late Tushi Rinpoche, and as a commitment he gave me, I read the Chuying Zu, and so every day. So in there, the space is understood not in terms of emptiness, but the subjective clear light, luminous, the innate mind. So in the Dzogchen and Mahamudra teachings of Gagyu and Nyingma traditions, they mostly focus on the clear light subjective mind as being. And so from the in the Gurji tradition, since the Guampo past time, there is this confluence of the Gadam and the Mahamudra tradition. So they focus mainly on this clear light mind when they refer to space or Dharmadhatu. Those abiding in the heart of enlightenment, such as Buddhas and so forth, so devoid of characteristics and origination and so forth. Devoid of characteristics and so forth are the arguments against the Chittamatra philosophical assertions and others. Those abiding in the heart of enlightenment, such as the Buddhas, the great beings, and all the great compassionate ones, always understand emptiness to be like space. Therefore, constantly meditate on this emptiness, the basis of all phenomena, tranquil and illusion-like, groundless and destroyer of cyclic existence, as non-origination and as emptiness, or as no self, grasping at emptiness as such. He who meditates on a lesser truth, that is not true meditation. The notions of virtue and non-virtue characterized by being momentary and disintegrated. The Buddha has spoken of this their emptiness. Other than this, no emptiness is held. Uh, 53. 54. And 55 down shows the Madhyamaka position. From the very beginning itself, the mind has never had any intrinsic nature, and so forth. 57. 58. So emptiness means that things are dependently originated, and it doesn't mean nothingness. So starting with ignorance and ending with aging. So I'll stop here at the 59, verse number 59, end of it. So emptiness is not, the view of emptiness is not a nihilistic view, but the things are dependently originated, what is understood by emptiness. Please ask your questions now. We'll have question and answer session. Raise your hands. Jimba. There, Deminde. Danji kandu dindu. Ja, han själv den. Du är själv, du är jag själv. Jimba, du är jag själv. Jag agree.
I think those people who have question
So those who will
come one side instead of microphone carry here and there. No, microphone one person hold the microphone. Then those questioner come here.
Chua shua dongaya. Yeah, Josh. Let him go in. Jimba. Let him go in up to His Holiness. Clear light. Jimba. Mic 찍히게도.
Dạ thưa thầy ạ, thầy cho con hỏi là vị Thế Tâm và Vô Tâm khác nhau như thế nào ạ? Và nếu con niệm Phật thì có thể có được
Cái dùng anh cái đồng rồi à?
không ạ?
Thế chủ bộ lộ.
Nào dịch vụ em rồi ạ. Con xin đọc lại câu hỏi là vị Thế Tâm và
Xong
Vô
rồi.
Tâm thì khác nhau như thế nào ạ? Và nếu con niệm Phật không thì có thể có được vị Thế Tâm không hay là chỉ qua được cách thiền định ạ?
Thế chỗ này à? Jimba. Khunzu tiwa nganzu khwaya mara piki di mic li kyur chukur. So with regard to mind or consciousness, we have the 5 sensorial perceptions which are related or to the external objects, form and so forth. In Western psychology, they mainly deal with the sensorial perceptions. But when we talk about anger, attachment, and so forth, they don't have to do anything with the sensorial perception, but they have to do with mind. When you're asleep and dream, there's no sense perception, but there is still the mental experience of the dream. So the sense perceptions arise when they meet with their particular object, whereas when you are asleep, these sense perceptions do not function. So within the mind, there are different degrees of subtlety. So I have some people who have some experience of meditation when they are single-pointedly focused, when they stay single-pointedly focused on one object, they are able to sustain it. Just merely seeing the experience of clarity and awareness. So from one's experience through meditation, one could talk about the subtlety, the degrees of subtlety within the mind. So of course there is benefit. As I quoted the Buddha yesterday, where the Buddha says, I have shown you the path to liberation, but liberation is in your hands. And then I also quoted these lines which says, this verse which says, the sages do not wash away the sins of beings, nor do they remove their suffering with their hands, nor do they transfer their own realization, but only by showing the truth and the reality do they lead other beings to liberation. And so what you need to think about is the nature of the mind, being luminous and awareness. So through one's training of the mind, meditation, sustained meditation, one will be able to overcome all the defilements of the mind, and not just by paying homage or
space.
To the Buddha.
When the meditation uses space and go to be the enlightenment, so please explain how to meditation with the space.
Space.
Space. It's not empty. Yes.
Space, chain, he uses space for chain. So whatever objects there are, you need to see that they have their own homogeneous cause, or a cause which is similar in type to the result. So for example, in the beginning, there is just empty space. And then when the formation of the universe began,
the solar system,
you have to go up. So within the cause, there are those what are called the substantial cause, the fundamental material. So in any thing outside, you should have that substantial cause for something to arise. Likewise, in the case of the mind, the consciousness, it should have its own substantial cause. So otherwise, without a cause, or a cause which is not compatible to the mind, it should be asserted, which are not logical. So with regard to our mental consciousness, for example, right now, we can actually see the degrees of subtlety within the mental consciousness, and then through one's meditation and focused meditation, if you sustain it, persevere in your meditation, there could be a possibility of actualizing the subtle clear-light mind, which must happen by clearing away those of the defilements which cover the subtle mind. Yeah.
Con có một câu hỏi là theo con hiểu là thầy ngài giảng thì mọi sự mọi vật mà tạo bởi các ngũ uẩn là đều có cái tánh không là có. Thì con muốn hỏi là cái gì là nó là cái có, hay làm sao con có thể biết cái có.
Everything is empty without any intrinsic. But some people think that there's still something. Sometimes it is said that things do not exist. Sometimes things exist, sometimes it is said things don't exist. When is it that they exist? When is it that they do not exist? So as I explained the fourfold emptiness from the Heart Sutra, you have to talk about emptiness, because emptiness is an attribute or characteristic of something, and therefore you must have a basis, an object of which you can talk about its emptiness. So without that basis, for example, the form, you cannot talk about the form being empty. And so I said the emptiness of form and form are of essentially the same nature, but conceptually different. So therefore, each and everything has two natures, which are this conventional and the ultimate nature, which is shared with, between the Sutrayana and Tantrayana.
While we speak on emptiness, we would like to think that compassion is at the heart of emptiness. Then do we believe that compassion exists? How to understand this paradox? Or is it that compassion is the fabric of emptiness and that only compassion exists, that is, love exists, and emptiness is nothing but full of love energy?
Very exotic question. So when you talk about emptiness, what you're actually doing is investigating into nature of things. And when you realize emptiness, there's just that empty absence of essential existence of anything. And therefore, things do not exist independently, truly, which means that things exist by way of dependence on others, conditions. So there's no self-sufficiency in anything because they are dependent on other factors. That's why they lack any essential nature.
We're saying about vacuity and that vacuity should be space, and that we should meditate about space. But who meditates? If conscience is time, you are comparing in this text, Arjuna, we're comparing time with conscience. Then meditating is something like time acting into the space. The text compares vacuity to space. And it says that we should meditate about space. But who meditates? The conscience is compared to time, and time doesn't really exist. So, meditation, is it time acting into space?
So when we say that things cannot be found, we don't say they don't exist, but when you actually search for the identity of things, you cannot find anything that you can pinpoint as being this and that. As Trungpa has said, of course, the fire and hands both are empty of any intrinsic existence. But if you put your hand in the fire, it'll naturally burn. Just by saying that they are empty, it doesn't mean that your hand will not burn when you put your hand in the fire. And if you hit your hand on the table, of course it hurts. But when you actually search for the identity of the hand or the table, you cannot find anything as being this or that. So that is what is actually meant by emptiness. Of course, the shape, color, and so forth of the table are its parts, the table's parts. And then you have the whole called table, which actually includes all the parts, color, and so forth. So if you try to search for the identity of the table within its color, the shape, the parts, and so forth, you cannot find anything as being that table. But conventionally, in worldly convention, we still can talk about a table in front of us. So that means that when you actually look for how things exist, the way things exist, and you look, you cannot actually find anything as being the table or any other thing. But conventionally, the table and other things still exist, and therefore we talk about the two truths, the conventional and the ultimate. And therefore the book, the Heart Sutra says form is empty and so forth.
What that is and how to recognize that within one's experience.
So with regard to the exaggerated outlook or inappropriate mentation, in quantum physics, they say that if you were to actually hold the things to have existence the way they appear to you, You cannot find, because when you actually look for things, you are actually trying to find what appears to you, but that's not what you can find. Whereas actions, agents, and objects do exist when you don't do any analysis into the ultimate nature. So when we say the things appear, but the way they exist is not the way they appear to us. And so when you understand emptiness correctly, you can understand that things are dependently originated, dependently arisen. And that is the profound view of the middle way.
Người nào nhập định thiền tâm Bồ Đề, dù chỉ chốc lát tốn công đức ấy, ngay đến chư Phật cũng không đo nổi. Con xin hỏi là làm sao để tập thiền tâm Bồ Đề? Con kính này.
Cho nên mình kể nhăn.
How do we train our mind on a daily basis in Bodhichitta? How do we train our mind in Bodhichitta on a daily basis? So when we hear something like news or watch news on television, we can see there are lots of troubles and problems in the world. All want happiness but not suffering. Despite that, they are devoid of happiness but overcome with suffering, inflicted by suffering. So if you could reflect on the facts that the other sentient beings are same, like myself, wanting happiness and not wanting suffering, but not only at the superficial level to overcome just the immediate suffering or pain, but to actually look into the cause of suffering, and knowing the cause, what are the antidote of the cause of suffering. So in other words, the suffering is not, if you ask, is suffering something that you cannot actually change? That's not the case. Because you can overcome or change suffering. And how can you do that? You need to find the means to overcome the suffering. And therefore, understanding that there's a means to overcome suffering, then you should actually feel sentient beings dear in your heart. If they could, thinking that if they could overcome or be free from suffering. So with that kind of broad understanding of suffering, even if you think of overcoming suffering of one person, of course all religious traditions teach about compassion and love. So these teachings do direct you towards bodhicitta. So these sentient beings who are suffering, you should think of leading them to that state which is free from all suffering. And for that reason, you should think of attaining complete enlightenment for the benefit of sentient beings, and therefore generate or cultivate bodhicitta.
See you again tomorrow.
No. 这个是讲不了。
估计接触到了，谁教我的？他们接触到，就是谁没教我的？我讲了，超多我不的上不这些时候都我给，他们不讲，讲是。
天宗康见瑞西提出给阿贝沙拉。为的前见瑞西提美见贝王波将表扬康健开配自见宗卡巴罗桑查贝沙拉索瓦的明美瓦的明美在为的前见瑞心提美见被王波将表扬康健开配自见宗卡巴罗桑查贝沙拉索瓦的美美在为的前见瑞西提美见被王波将表扬康健开配自见宗卡巴罗桑查贝沙拉索瓦的美美在为的前见瑞西提美见被王波将表扬康健开配自见宗卡巴罗桑查贝沙拉索瓦的美美在为的前见瑞西提美见被王波将表扬康健开配自见宗卡巴罗桑查贝沙拉索瓦的美美在为的前见瑞西提美见被王波将表扬康健开配自见宗卡巴罗桑见瑞西提前见瑞西提美见被王波将表扬康健开配自见宗卡巴罗桑 Trape Shabla Sowade Me Te Wei De Chen Je Re Si Ti Me Kien Be Wang Bo Cham Be Yang Kang Chen Kie Bei Zu Gen Zong Ka Ba Lo Sang Tra Bei Sha La So Wa De Me Te Wei De Chen Chen Re Si Ti Me Kien Bei Wang Bo Cham Bel Yang Kang Chen Kie Bei Zu Gen Zong Ka Ba Lo Sang Tra Bei Sha La So Wa De Me Te Wei De Chen Chen Re Si Ti Me Kien Bei Wang Bo Cham Bel Yang Kang Chen Kie Bei Zu Gen Zong Ka Ba Lo Sang Tra Bei Sha La So Wa De Me Te Wei De Chen Chen Re Si Ti Me Kien Bei Wang Bo Cham Bel Yang Kang Chen Kie Bei Zu Gen Zong Ka Ba Lo Sang Tra Bei Sha La So Wa De Me Te Wei De Chen Chen Re Si Ti Me Kien Bei Wang Bo Cham Bel Yang Kang Chen Kie Bei Zu Gen Zong Ka Ba Lo Sang Tra Bei Sha La So Wa De Me Te Wei De Chen Chen Re Si Ti Me Kien Bei Wang Bo Cham Bel Yang Kang Chen Kie Bei Zu Gen Zong Ka Ba Lo Sang Tra Bei Sha La So Wa De
นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัส สะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะเอกทาธัมมราชาปิเคลันเยนาภิปิลิโตจุนทัตเถเรนตันเยวพนาเปตวานาสาธาระสัมโมทิตวาจาอาภาธาตัมหาวุฒาสิทานาโสเอเตนะสัจจวัชเชนะโสทิเตโหตุสัพพทาปะหินาเตจะอาภาธาตินันนัมปิมะเหสินามัคคาหตกิเลสาวปัตตานุปาติธรรมตาเอเตนะสัจจวัชเชนะโสทิเตโหตุสัพพทา
Sutra Hati Penyempurnaan Kebijaksanaan. Penuh hormat saya sembah Sang Triratna. Demikian telah saya dengar, suatu saat Sang Buddha sedang berada di Raja Griha di Gunung Puncak Nasar bersama dengan serombongan besar biksu-biksu dan bodhisattva-bodhisattva. Pada saat itu, perhatian Sang Buddha sedang terpusat pada konsentrasi yang menyelidiki semua fenomena dalam jumlah tak terbatas yang disebut pencerahan yang mendalam. Pada saat itu juga Yang Mulia Bhagawan Avalokitesvara, Bodhisattva, Mahasattva sedang mengamati secara sesama praktek penyempurnaan kebijaksanaan yang mendalam serta mengamati secara sempurna kosongnya kelima skanda dari keberadaan yang sejati. Kemudian, berkat inspirasi dari Sang Buddha, Yang terhormat Sariputra berkata kepada Yang Mulia Bhagawan Avalokitesvara, Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, bagaimana seharusnya seorang putra dari sisila baik berlatih bila ia ingin menjalankan praktek penyempurnaan kebijaksanaan yang mendalam. Lalu Yang Mulia Bhagawan Avalokitesvara, Bodhisattva, Mahasattva menjawab, Sariputra, siapapun putra atau putri dari sisila baik yang ingin menjalankan praktek penyempurnaan kebijaksanaan yang mendalam seharusnya mengamati secara sempurna demikian. Lihatlah secara sempurna dan tepat kosongnya kelima skanda dari keberadaan yang sejati. Bentuk adalah kesunyataan, kesunyataan adalah bentuk. Kesunyataan tidak lain dari bentuk, dan bentuk tidak lain dari kesunyataan. Demikian pula hanya perasaan, kemampuan membeda-bedakan, faktor-faktor pembentuk, dan kesadaran adalah sunya. Sariputra, demikianlah semua fenomena sunya, tanpa ciri, tidak diproduksi dan tidak berakhir, tidak bernoda dan tidak dibersihkan dari noda, tidak berkurang dan tidak bertambah. Oleh karena itu Sariputra, di dalam kesunyatan tiada bentuk, tiada perasaan, tiada kemampuan membeda-bedakan, tiada faktor-faktor pembentuk, tiada kesadaran, tiada mata, tiada hidung, tiada telinga, tiada lidah, tiada tubuh, tiada batin, tiada rupa, tiada suara, tiada bau, tiada rasa, tiada yang disentuh, tiada fenomena, tiada unsur mata dan sebagainya, hingga tiada unsur batin, dan juga tiada unsur kesadaran mental, tiada ketidaktahuan dan tiada berakhir ketidaktahuan dan sebagainya, hingga tiada proses penuaan serta kematian, dan tiada berakhirnya proses penuaan serta kematian. Begitu pula tiada duka, tiada penyebab duka, tiada akhir duka maupun jalan benar, tiada kebijaksanaan yang arya, tiada pencapaian maupun bukan pencapaian. Maka, Sariputra, karena tiada pencapaian, para bodhisattva mengandalkan dan memusatkan diri dalam penyempurnaan kebijaksanaan, dan dalam batin mereka tiada gangguan maupun ketakutan. Dengan mengatasi pandangan-pandangan yang sesat, mereka mencapai keadaan tanpa duka. Semua Buddha dari ketiga kurun waktu dengan mengandalkan penyempurnaan kebijaksanaan telah mewujudkan keadaan yang tidak terlampaui, pencerahan yang sempurna dan lengkap. Oleh karena itu, mantra penyempurnaan kebijaksanaan adalah mantra pengetahuan agung, mantra yang tak tertandingi, mantra yang tiada taranya, mantra yang sepenuhnya mententeramkan semua derita secara tuntas. Karena mantra tersebut tidak palsu, ia dikenal sebagai kebenaran. Mantra penyempurnaan kebijaksanaan dikumandangkan. Tayata, gate gate, para gate, para sam gate bodhisoha. Sariputra, demikianlah seorang bodhisattva mahasatwa seharusnya berlatih dalam penyempurnaan kebijaksanaan yang mendalam. Kemudian Sang Buddha bangkit dari konsentrasinya dan memuji Yang Mulia Bhagawan Avalokiteswara, Bodhisattva, Mahasatwa sambil bersabda, penjelasan yang baik, penjelasan yang baik. Oh putra Sisila, memang demikian putra Sisila. Demikianlah seharusnya penyempurnaan kebijaksanaan yang mendalam dipraktekkan dan para tathagata akan berbudita cita. Ketika Sang Buddha bersabda demikian, Yang Mulia Bhagawan Avalokiteswara, Bodhisattva, Mahasatwa, dan seluruh perkumpulan para siswa maupun para makhluk duniawi, para dewa, manusia, asura, dan Gandharva bergembira dan memuji sabda Sang Buddha. Demikian sutra mula hati penyempurnaan kebijaksanaan telah selesai.
May the sound of the great Dharma drum dispel the miseries of all miseries of sentient beings. May you live for tens of billions of eons to teach the Dharma. So today is the last day of this teaching, this time. So I thought of doing the Bodhichitta ceremony at the end as an auspicious conclusion. And before that, I want to teach the three principal aspects of the path. The reason for that is the Master Nagarjuna's text quite vast in its subject matter, but when you actually integrate them in your practice, the three principal aspects of the path is quite comprehensive text for practice. So with regard to this tradition of Lamrim, the stages of the path to enlightenment, since Atisha, the Vankara Srijana, came to Tibet, the Gadam tradition, and from it, because of his coming to Tibet, the Gadam tradition spread in Tibet, and the Gadam tradition is said to be the tradition that follows the teaching of the Tripitakas, putting the whole of the Tripitaka teachings into the practice pertaining to the three beings of three capacities. And therefore, it is like the verse that His Holiness recited says that this rosary, which strings together the three pitakas, is whoever sends the beads, it would be beneficial, meaningful to anyone. And so we have the stages of the paths pertaining to the beings, shared with those of the beings of small capacity, then shared with those of intermediate capacity, and then the great capacity, beings of great capacity. And so Rinpoche Tsongkhapa wrote his great treatise on the stages of the path, and then the intermediate, medium length stages of the path, and then the Song of Experience. And then a unique way of teaching that Rinpoche has done is found in the principal aspects of the path, which was taught to Tsako Wenpo Ngawan Chakpa. And this is a short text. And on a daily basis, if you could go through the text and do a screening reflection on it, it would be good. So first we'll continue from where we left yesterday. Master Nagarjuna's text. In the English text is on page 25, where I think he's almost finished verse 59 yesterday. His Holiness thinks he was on this verse which says, starting with ignorance and ending with aging. That's the verse. So what His Holiness was referring to, the verse that he just read, refers to the assertions of a self by non-Buddhist traditions, and then those of the realists, the Sotantikas and Vipashikas, and then those of the Chittamatrins. So if there is no self, then what is a doer and so forth? So these verses reject or refute those of the non-Buddhist assertions. Those who benefit beings or wish to benefit beings. So Yangdin Rinpoche, His Holiness had missed those verses yesterday. So we're on verse 59 now, starting with ignorance and ending with aging. All this refers to the 12 links of dependent origination. So there's a story about the Buddha commissioning a painting of the 12 links of dependent origination, which is called Bhava Chakra, the wheel of life. And so for Udayana, the 12 links of dependent origination, we accept them to be like dream and an illusion. So nothing whatever has any intrinsic independent existence. And when other schools object to the Madhyamakas, saying that nothing exists independently or intrinsically means you are nihilist, then the Master Nagarjuna responds by saying, we still do accept things like dream and like illusions. So as it is found in the sutras, Paramita sutras and so forth, which say that phenomena are merely in name. And so when the Madhyamakas are criticized for being nihilist, holding, they respond by saying that we do still accept, while rejecting any independent existence in things, we still do accept the samsara, nirvana, and so forth. This wheel with 12 links rolls along the road of cyclic existence. Outside this, there cannot be sentient beings experiencing the fruits of their deeds. Just as the independence upon a mirror, a full image of one's face appears. The face did not move into the mirror yet. Without it, there is no image of the face. Likewise, aggregates recompose in a new existence. Yet the wise always understand that no one is born in another existence, nor does someone transfer to such existence. And so when you, of course, do analyze things, nothing whatever can be found when you search for their identity within them. Yet we can still talk about cause and effects. Without a cause, without something that is beneficial to bring about a result, you cannot have a result. And without the result, you cannot talk about a cause as well. And therefore, the action, the actor, the agent, and the object acted upon cannot be independent, but they should be posited as dependently arisen. Without the agent, the doer, there is no action, and without the action, there is no. We cannot talk about an object acted upon or an agent, and so forth. And so, these are all interdependent. In brief, from empty phenomena arise. Agent, karma, fruits, and the enjoyer, the conqueror, taught these to be only conventional, just as the sound of a drum, as well as a shoot, are produced from collection of factors. We accept the external world of dependent origination to be like a dream and an illusion. And so, these 12 links of dependent origination, beginning with ignorance, the chain begins with the ignorance, and then the rest of the chain form, or they arise. The phenomena are born from causes can never be inconsistent with facts. Since the cause is empty of cause, we can understand it to be empty of origination. The non-origination of all phenomena is clearly taught to be emptiness. In brief, the 5 aggregates are denoted by expression all phenomena. When the ultimate truth is explained as it is, the conventional is not obstructed. Independent of the convention, no ultimate truth can be found. So this shows that two truths are of the same nature. So when we talk about emptiness, it has to be related or talk about in relation to an object on the basis of which that emptiness is established. So without an object, then some objects, you cannot talk about emptiness of it as it. And therefore, in the Heart Sutra, you find this expression, form is empty, emptiness is form. So the convention is taught to be emptiness, the emptiness itself is conventional. One does not occur without the other, just as being produced and impermanent. So when you actually try to, since they are dependently originated, they are absent of any intrinsic existence. Yet when you don't do any kind of ultimate analysis into how things exist, then things do exist by convention. The conventional arise from afflictions and karma arises from the mind. The mind is accumulated with propensities. When free from propensities, it's happiness. A happy mind is tranquil indeed. A tranquil mind is confused, not confused. To have no confusion is to understand the truth. By understanding the truth, one attains freedom. It's described as suchness and such as the reality limit, as signlessness and as ultimate truth, as the supreme awakening mind. It's described also as emptiness. So when you think through about emptiness, we will find that how we see things is affected or influenced by our ignorance, and how ignorance actually perceives things to exist is how the way that there is some kind of objective independent existence. And therefore, you can see that the ignorance is a distorted view, because things are empty of any independent existence, whereas ignorance grasps at an independent existence. And so because we cling on to the appearance of how things appear to us, therefore we are full of, when we're ruined. And so we are tossed by attachment, anger, and so forth, all these mental afflictions. So when you understand emptiness well, you'll be able to see that this course of suffering, which is rooted in ignorance, can be overcome. So since there is the possibility to overcome suffering, and when you see sentient beings still indulge in causes of suffering, for example, within the ignorance, there is the mental afflictions. There are those mental afflictions which are of view, and there are those which are not non-views. So the unafflicted intelligence is the type of affliction which is intelligence. So when you understand that things have no existence, that things do not exist the way they appear to us, therefore you'll be able to see that this ignorance can be overcome. And when you understand this possibility, or see the possibility to overcome suffering, and because the cause of suffering, the very root of suffering is a distorted view, a misperception. Because all the afflictive emotions are rooted in this misconception of or ignorance. So although these mental afflictions such as anger, attachment, and so forth are so strong in us, but they have no sound basis. There's no support of reason and logic. Whereas love and compassion are based on logic and reason, and they're supported by reason. Although the ordinary love and affection that we have to our near and dear ones are biased, but when you actually develop this love and compassion further, as the mind becomes stronger and stronger in terms of love and compassion, you'll be able to actually extend your love to all sentient beings. So the mental afflictions are all deluded, and because they are rooted in this fundamental ignorance. So when the emptiness is explained, is thus meditated upon by the yogis, no doubt there will arise in them a sentiment attached to others' welfare. So overcoming the mental afflictions together with their residual stains, the imprints, when you are able to see such a possibility to attain Dharmakaya, the Buddhahood, you'll have this kind of feeling towards other sentient beings. Towards those beings that have bestowed benefit upon me in the past, such as through being my parents or friends, I shall strive to repay their kindness. So from here, that of the Bodhichitta is taught. So with regard to bodhicitta, here the bodhicitta that arises through equaling exchanging self and others is taught. So as Lama Chöpa in the Guru Puja says, this self-cherishing attitude is the cause of all ruins, whereas cherishing all mother sentient beings is the root of all good things. And Shantideva says that unless you exchange your suffering, your happiness with the suffering of others, you will not have attain Buddhahood, leave alone attaining Buddhahood. Even in this cyclic existence, you will not have happiness. So when you have the bodhicitta within yourself, you have that courage, the confidence to work for others. Until the end of space, you will feel determined that there is nothing else you can do but to help others. Nothing else you should do but to help and serve others. So the term Chang Chup for Bodhi in Tibetan, Chang means to overcome or eliminate all the defects and faults and shortcomings within oneself, and Chup refers to being knowledgeable of everything, and that is Buddhahood. To those beings that are being scorched by the fire of afflictions in existence prison, just as I have given them suffering in the past, it's befitting today that I give them happiness. The fruits which are desirable or undesirable in the form of fortunate or unfortunate births in the world, they come about from helping the sentient beings or harming them. If by relying upon the sentient beings the unexcelled state of Buddhahood is brought about, so what is so astonishing about the fact that whatever prosperities there are in the gods and humans, such as those enjoyed by Brahma, Indra, and so forth, and the worldly guardians of the world, there's nothing in this triple world system that is not brought forth by helping others. As hell beings, as animals, and as hungry goes, the different kinds of sufferings which sentient beings experience, these come from harming others, so disregarding others' well-being and actually ignoring them, and then being tossed by your own attachment and anger and so forth, because of your fear and also the actions that harm others, come from cherishing oneself over others. Hunger, thirst, and attacking each other, and agony of being tormented, which are the difficult to avert and unending. These are the fruits of harming others. Just as there is Buddhahood and awakening mind, and the fortunate birth on the other hand, and the unfortunate birth on the other, know that the karmic fruition of beings too is twofold. Verse number 81. So the text that His Holiness has says "no need to," not twofold, but know that the karmic fruitions of beings are the truth, or something like that. So as social animals, what brings, what helps for individual survival and experiencing happiness comes on the basis of independence on the society or the community they live in. So all social animals, because they need to depend on the community they live in, therefore they need affection towards others. Even scientists today, as I said yesterday, say that basic human nature is compassionate. Although for ordinary people, affection is still tinged with attachment. Support others with all possible factors. Protect them as you would your own body. Detachment towards the other sentient beings must be shunned as you would a poison. Because of their detachment, did not the disciples attain lesser awakening? By never abandoning the sentient beings, the fully awakened Buddhas attain awakening. Thus, when one considers the occurrence of the fruits of beneficial and non-beneficial states, how can anyone remain, even for an instant, attached only to one's own welfare, rooted firmly because of compassion and arising from the shoot of awakening mind, the true awakening that is the sole fruit of altruism? This is conqueror's children. This the conqueror's children cultivate. And so, because of bodhicitta, the bodhisattvas are able to attain high realizations and progress along the path leading to Buddhahood. When through practice it becomes firm, then, alarmed by others' suffering, the bodhisattvas renounce the bliss of concentration and plunge even to the depths of relentless health. So as there's this prayer, may I never indulge in selfish motive to attain one's own goal, but may I strive to work for the benefit of all other sentient beings. And for that, may I attain those of the supernatural powers and clairvoyance and so forth. So this is indeed amazing, praiseworthy it is. This is the excellent way to sublime, that they gave away their own flesh and wealth is not surprising, and so forth. So verse number 90. Though bodhisattvas such as Samantabhadra have burned the wood of afflictions with the wisdom fire of emptiness, they still remain moistened by the compassion. Those under the power of compassion display acts of departing birth and merriment, renouncing kingdom, engaging in ascetic penance, great awakening and defeating the Maras, turning the wheel of Dharma, entering the realm of all gods, and likewise display the act of going beyond the bounds of sorrow, in guises of Brahma, Indra, and Vishnu, and that of the fierce Rudra forms. They perform the compassionate dance with acts bringing peace to the beings. For those disheartened on existence road, for their respite, the two wisdoms that lead to the great vehicle had been taught. They are, however, not ultimate. So long not exalted by the Buddha, so long the disciples will remain in the bodily state of wisdom, swoon and intoxicated by absorption. When exhorted, then in diverse forms, they will become attached to others' welfare. And if they gather stores of merit and wisdom, they will attain the Buddha's full awakening. Because propensities of two obscurations exist, their propensities are referred to as seeds of existence. From the meeting of the seeds with conditions, the shoot of cyclic existence is produced. The path revealed by the saviors of the world, which follow their patterns of beings' mentalities, differ variously among the diverse people due to the diverse methods employed by the Buddhas. The instructions differ as the profound and the vast. So verse number 203. The single taste of compassion is merit. The taste of emptiness is most excellent. Those who drink the elixir of emptiness to realize self and others' welfare are conquerors' children. Bow to them with your entire being. They are always worthy of honor in the three worlds. These guides of the world reside as representatives of the Buddhas. So even when you wish to fulfill your own goal, there's nothing else greater than cultivating bodhicitta. If you wish to fulfill the goals or interests of others as well, there's nothing greater than bodhicitta to fulfill that. So with bodhicitta, everything would appear positive to you. 106. So the whole world would appear as positive to such a being. This awakening mind is stated to be the highest ideal in the great vehicle. So, with an absorbed, determined effort, generate this awakening mind to accomplish self and others' welfare. No other means exist in the world. Apart from the awakening mind to date, that Buddha saw no other means. The merit that is obtained from mere generation of awakening mind, if it were to assume a form, it will fill more than the expanse of space. A person who, for an instant, meditates on the awakening mind, the heap of merit obtained from this, not even the conquerors can measure. A precious mind that is free of afflictions, this is the most unique and exalted jewel. It can neither be harmed nor stolen by such robbers as the Maras of afflictions. Mara of afflictions, just such as aspirations of the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas are unswerving. Likewise, those who immerse themselves in awakening must hold firm the earth. Even with wonder you should strive. As explained here in the preceding lines, thereafter you'll yourself realize Samantabhada's great enlightened deeds by praising the awakening mind hailed by the excellent conquerors. The incomparable merits I have obtained today from this act made through this old sentient being submerged in the waves of existence ocean, travel on the path trodden by the leaders of the bipeds. This concludes a commentary on awakening mind composed by the great master Nagarjuna. It was translated and meditated, the colophon, in other words. So he's only said Master Nagarjuna first deals with the ultimate bodhicitta and then teaches that of the conventional bodhicitta. So, as I have explained the other day too, when you study this kind of text, you may find yourself lost in terms of how you should put the whole teaching into practice precisely. And therefore, for that reason, I chose the three principal aspects of the path. Does anyone need the text? English? So in a miscellaneous text of Master Tsongkhapa, he says this to the same person to whom he wrote the three principles of the path. So practice the teaching as I have told you, and then when I become enlightened, when I become a Buddha, I will share the first nectar of my Dharma with you. So Tsago Wambong Awan Thakpa was the one to whom this was addressed. So Tsago Wambong Awan Thakpa was someone who actually served the Dharma greatly in the eastern part of Tibet, who was a disciple of Master Tsongkhapa. So for general subjects, we need some teacher, don't we? And so this is similar. It is the same with Dharma. So you need someone who teaches it. So you need a teacher for Dharma. In the great treatise on the stages of the path, Master Tsongkhapa says there's no way you can actually try to tame others without yourself becoming tamed. And to tame oneself, you cannot do just any practice from here and there, picking things from here and there, but you need to actually follow the teaching of the Buddha, Sri Pitaka, which teaches the three trainings. In other words, a qualified Dharma teacher should have these 10 qualifications, which are taught in the Mahayana Sutra, Alamkara. And so Master Tsongkhapa goes through these outlines, the disciples or the students to whom the teachings are given, and the teacher who gives the teaching, and how the teacher gives the teaching to the disciples. And therefore, you need to have a qualified teacher in order to study well. Because without a qualified teacher, the students' time to study also would be wasted. So you should have a teacher who is qualified and a teaching which is also a qualified teaching. And then in the Lamrim teaching text, there's mention of the greatness of the author. So it is very important to examine the teaching of the teachers. So in society, we have people with faith, but we are lagging in this critical examination and investigation into the teaching. So sometimes there may be, because of certain purpose, the teachers may make mistakes. So for example, to be quite frank, Jabje Paponga Rinpoche had great disciples like Jabje Tijang Rinpoche and like Kangsa Dorje Chang. But Paponga Rinpoche, because of his propitiation of Gyalpo Shugden, so what you need to do is to have pure vision of the person. But when it comes to the teaching of the person, you should actually critically analyze it. So I have objected to the practice of Shugden, and later on I found that in the writings of the great fifth Dalai Lama, Shugden arose from a wrong course, which is his wrong prayer. And then, as a result of that, he was born as a negative being. And harming, what he does is harming beings and the teaching. So the great fifth Dalai Lama had mentioned about, described Shugden as being such. And so he was a great master himself and had great pure visions of deities and so forth. So of course, in the earlier I did propitiate Shugden, but then later I did a lot of investigation into it, checked the authenticity of Shugden practice and so forth, and found that it is not right to do the practice. It is therefore my responsibility to tell people that there is harm from propitiating the Shugden, and there's no benefit from it. So having propitiated the Shugden, what people have done is actually harmed the teaching of Master Tsongkhapa itself, while claiming to be the follower of him. So, of course, we need to really think through when it comes to saying that we should have a pure vision of everything that a master does. The master, our own master, Lord Buddha, has not mentioned that we should have pure vision in everything that the master does. He actually advised us to check his own teaching for its authenticity, through just giving the analogy of testing gold. So in tantric practice, we have the field of merit or tree of merit, which is visualized in front of us, and that is emphasizing the reliance, the practice of reliance on Guru. So it's very important, in other words, for us to examine the teachings and the practices. So the text says, homage to the most venerable teachers. So the masters include those of the masters of the extensive path lineage and the profound view lineage. And then the blessing lineage of practice, which is also referred to as Lobchen Jugyu, the great practice or conduct lineage. So these terms, three terms, were used by Gyalwa Dromtenpa. So what greater practice than these two, the extensive path or contact lineage and the profound view lineage, is there something called the profound or the great practice lineage as such. So when we talk about, sometimes when I think about this term, I have this impression of the Indian Mahasiddhas who lived rather naked. So to go through the text, I shall explain the essential points of all the scriptures of the conquerors. So all the teachings, the entire teaching of the Buddha is brought down into this practice. And then the path acclaimed by all excellent Bodhichitta, which refers to Bodhichitta, the practice of Bodhichitta. And then the gateway for the fortunate to aspiring for liberation. In order to reach liberation, you need to overcome mental afflictions. For that, you need to go through the process of listening to teaching, reflecting on it, and meditating on it, not through some kind of prayer and doing rituals. So you need to overcome the misconception, which is ignorance, by actually cultivating the path which diametrically goes against it, counters it. So I shall explain these here to the best of my ability. Those who are not attached to the joys of secular existence, this shows the renunciation, who strive to make meaningful this life of leisure and opportunity. So if you, having studied about Bodhicitta, if you have a faith in Bodhicitta, even for a second, that is beneficial. And then who place their trust in the path that pleases the Buddha refers to the profound view. You can interpret these lines in this way. Each line referring to the renunciation, bodhicitta, and the profound view. And so this text goes through the teaching on renunciation, giving the reason for practicing it, and then the actual practice, and then the measure of having generated or developed the authentic, genuine renunciation or bodhicitta, and so forth. So here, within this practice of renunciation, you should practice on the meaningfulness or significance of having found a precious human life and how difficult it is to find such a human life, and then the practice of meditation on impermanence, thinking about death, that this life, though, is so precious and meaningful, yet it will not live forever, and that you will definitely die. It's inevitable, and the time of death is not known. And at the time of death, nothing else but dharma can help. So the text says, without pure renunciation, there is no means to pacify the yearning for the joys and fruits of samsaric ocean. And as craving for existence chain us thoroughly, at first search for true renunciation. So by cultivating in mind that this human life is so hard to find, and so forth, shows the practice of renunciation, and then the verse number 6 shows the verse number 5 shows the measure of having developed that the renunciation or the determination to be free. And then verse number 6 shows the reason for practicing or cultivating bodhicitta. And how to cultivate bodhicitta is shown by verses 7 and 8. So these two verses I use also for the cultivation of the determination to be free from samsara or renunciation. So verse number 6 says, they are being swept away constantly by 4 powerful rivers. They are bound tightly with fetters of karma, most difficult to escape. They are trapped inside the iron mesh of self-gratification. They are enveloped from everywhere by thick mists of ignorance. They take birth within cyclic existence that has no end, where they are endlessly tormented by the 3 sufferings. By reflecting on all your mothers. So instead of saying all your mothers, you actually refer these to yourself by reflecting on my suffering condition, and I shall generate that of renunciation. So it's not easy to overcome this grasping at true existence of things. And therefore, when I recite this text every day, and I use these 2 verses, verse number 7 and 8, for the cultivation of renunciation within myself. So the suffering of sentient beings, their causes, which are karma and delusions, and particularly the of grasping at true existence in things and self. When you think about these in relation to yourself and wishing to renounce or overcome them, relating to yourself, then you cultivate renunciation. And when you actually think of these situations in relation to other sentient beings, you think or you develop that of bodhicitta. So for the practice of bodhicitta, there's no greater text than Shantideva's Bodhisattvacharya Avatara. So these lines that his Holiness quotes are from Master Nagarjuna's Ratnavali, or the jewel garland, or precious garland. Even if a few sentient beings remain, may I, even after my enlightenment, remain in samsara to liberate them. So for Bodhichitta, there is no greater text than the Bodhisattva Charyavatara by Shantideva. And Kundalama Lama Rinpoche, from whom I received the teaching on the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, has said that there has not been any greater text than Bodhisattva Charyavatara since it was written in the 8th century for the practice and cultivation of Bodhicitta. So if you do not have the wisdom realizing its ultimate nature, even if you gain familiarity with the renunciation and awakening mind, you will not be able to cut the root of samsaric existence. So strive in this means of realizing dependent origination. So here, Master Tsongkhapa, rather than using the term emptiness or selflessness, he uses the term dependent origination, which is very significant term, because Master Nagarjuna in his Mola Madhyamaka Karika says, whatever arises through dependence on others is said to be empty, and that is itself designated, and that is the middle way. And there's no phenomena which is not dependent, therefore there's no phenomena which is not empty. And so dependent origination, understanding of it is very crucial in understanding emptiness. So with regard to dependent origination, there is a causality, dependence in terms of causality, and then the dependence of parts, whole on its parts. And then the dependence or in terms of how things are merely designated, conceptually labeled. And so there are these degrees of subtlety in understanding, within this the dependent origination. So dependence, by dependence, that of the reality of how things exist is not abandoned or relinquished, and by origination, that of the conventional worldly conventions is not relinquished. When with respect to all phenomena of samsara and nirvana, so by understanding dependent origination in terms of the cause and effect, then you can develop the understanding of dependence in terms of how things are made up of parts, and therefore a whole is dependent on its parts. And then from there you can lead yourself into this insight into how things are merely designated. So when with respect to all phenomena of samsara, you see the cause and effect never deceive their laws. And when you have dismantled the focus of objectification, at that point you have entered the path that pleases the Buddhas. So in the earlier part of Master Tsongkhapa's life, he actually came up with this view that conventions are meant in view of others, and whereas things being empty of any inherent existence is so by using the reasoning of dependent origination, you should be able to actually reject any kind of objectification in things, objective existence in things, which is how this objectification is done by ignorance. So long as two understandings of appearance, which is undeceiving dependent origination, and the emptiness is devoid of all these, remain separate, so long you have not realized the intent of sages. So His Holiness was commenting on this, that Master Tsongkhapa, in his earlier part of his life, he was not able to actually bring these two together, the dependent origination and emptiness, as complementing each other. So there was some Tibetan great master So, however, at some point when without alteration, but at once, the instant you see the divine origination undeceiving, if the entire object of grasping at certitude is dismantled, at that point your analysis of the view has culminated. Furthermore, when appearance dispels the extremes of existence, and when emptiness dispels the extreme of non-existence, and if you understand how emptiness arises as cause and effect, you'll never be captivated by views grasping at extremes. Thus, when you have understood as they are the essentials of the three principal articles of the path, O son, seek solitude, and by enhancing the power of perseverance, swiftly accomplish your aspiration. So, the term son could also be referred to oneself. Next, so this. Next, we'll do the Bodhichitta ceremony. So imagine the Buddha in person in front of you in the space, surrounded by his Bodhisattva close disciples, such as Avalokiteshvara, Manjushri, Vajrapani, Samandabhadra, Kidegarbha, Akashagarbha, and then also Master Nagarjuna and his disciples, the Indian masters, in other words, and then the masters of the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, the past masters. So these unfailing objects of refuge, imagine them in front of you. So all the teachings that the Buddha has given, the profound and the extensive practices, were given by the Buddha for us to reach that same state that he has reached, which is the state free from all shortcomings and being full of, with full knowledge of everything. So Masters Nagarjuna and so forth also wrote their texts for us to make our self-grasping and grasping at true existence shaken. So imagine Master Nagarjuna and so forth in front of you, as I said. And if you look at the world, our pain and pleasure are rooted in our mind. And our mind is more, so far, has been under the sway of our self-cherishing attitude and grasping at some independent true existence. And therefore, we need to uproot these two through the practice of bodhicitta for overcoming self-cherishing attitude. So you cherish others over oneself, and then the view of emptiness, or which cuts this grasping at true existence. So Buddha and these great masters, whom we visualize in front of us, are our objects of refuge, and therefore we pray to become like them, and therefore call on them to help us. And so you go through the practice of 7 limbs, which are making prostrations, making offerings, confession, so if you look at the text, page number 10 in English, so the 7 limbs are prostration, offering, confession, rejoicing, requesting, and supplicating, and dedication. So whatever wholesome practices and actions you have done and accumulated with your body, speech, and mind, imagine them as offering to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and the great masters in front of you. So apart from this, even if you make great, called elaborate offerings of material things, I mean, they may not make the Buddhas completely pleased as such. And so the offering of practice is the best offering to the Buddhas and the masters. And so prostration, offering, and then confession. What we confess is, so far we have rather indulged in self-cherishing attitude, and also we have been overcome with confusion. And so, seeing these faults of ourselves, which are the causes of suffering, and as seeing the fact that I have not cultivated the causes of happiness, but rather indulge in the causes of suffering, you feel regret and confess your misdeeds, and then rejoicing. So you rejoice in the great deeds, the good things that the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas have done, or are doing, or those that they will do. So as I quoted the other day, the Buddhas do not wash away the sins of beings, nor do they remove the suffering of beings with their hands and so forth. The Buddhas cannot help us apart from giving teachings. So requesting means requesting to give teachings. So even if you may request the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to give teachings, if you were to see them, have vision of them, they would actually tell you that they have written all these books for us to study, and you leave these texts aside while requesting for some teaching. So these great wisdoms that are found in these texts should be used as our textbooks, and study must be done. And then supplicating not to pass away. So of course, Master Nagarjuna and so forth are not here physically, but we have their writings and their spirit. Therefore, their spirit is with us until the end of space. And therefore, we can make the supplication not to pass away. And then you dedicate all these wholesome actions of prostration through to supplication for the benefit of all sentient beings, temporarily as well as ultimately. And so for this 7-limb prayer and the Bodhichitta ceremony, please kneel on your right knee or crouch. Trốn năm trên đường, lòng So the text that we are going to use says, with a wish to free all sentient beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha until I reach the essence of enlightenment, and so forth. So I am like a messenger of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, whom you visualize in front of you in the space, in person. So in front of these infallible objects of refuge, I serve as the messenger for you. And so you should think that you will cultivate this bodhicitta within yourself, just like the past masters, the Buddha and the masters like this Nagarjuna and so forth. And so I will train myself in your footsteps. So with this, please repeat, with a wish to free all sentient beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha until I reach the essence of enlightenment, enthused by wisdom and compassion, diligently for the sake of sentient beings. In the presence of the Buddhas, I shall generate the mind for full awakening. With the wish to free all sentient beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha until I reach the essence of enlightenment. Enthused with wisdom and compassion, and diligently for the sake of sentient beings, in the presence of the Buddha, I shall generate mind for full awakening. So at this time, having found this precious human life and also having met with the Buddha's teaching, you should make the determination to generate this bodhicitta, the spirit of enlightenment, just like the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas have done. And also, with regard to the practice of Bodhisattvas, I shall also train myself delightfully, with full delight, just as the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas have done. So this is not about one lifetime, nor one eon, but until the end of space. You should think that there's nothing else to do for you but to work for sentient beings. Please repeat, with the wish to free all sentient beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha until I reach the essence of enlightenment. Enthused by wisdom and compassion, diligently for the sake of sentient beings, in the presence of the Buddhas, I generate a full mind for full awakening. Please sit down. We're done with this Bodhicitta ceremony. So as Bodhisattva, the Master Shantideva says, as you find on page 12, today my life has borne fruit and so forth, and then now come what may, I shall act in accord with this lineage and so forth. So Bodhicitta is the great sun that dispels the darkness of sentient beings. It is like the butter that is churned out of the Dharma ocean. It is that elixir of life which destroys death and so forth. So as Shantideva says, in Bodhisattva Charyavatara, I call upon all the gods and non-gods to be happy from now on. So if you consider some beings who are harmful to you or causing you harm, sickness and so forth, you should be, from now on, you should be able to see them as your dear near ones and not some beings harming you. To overcome with this bodhicitta rather than doing any kind of ritual to dispel or to overcome the so-called evil beings, who are actually objects of compassion. So instead of fearing and instead of having fear and anxiety in relation to these so-called evil beings, you should feel compassion towards them. So please repeat this Muni Muni, Mahamuni Esa, Buddha's mantra of Buddha Shakyamuni, Mahamuni Esa, Muni Muni, Mahamuni Esa. And then there are 8 close Bodhisattva disciples of the Buddha, and of them Avalokiteshvara is the deity of compassion. Om Mani Padme, please repeat this. Om Mani Padme Hum. And then amongst the 8 disciples, there's Manjushri, who is the deity of wisdom. So based on practices in relation to Manjushri, you can develop your intelligence. Please repeat. Om Marapazanadi. Om Marapazanadi. And then Vajrapani. Instead of Vajrapani, we'll have Tara mantra. Arya Tara, Goddess Tara, is the purified state of the prana energy, and therefore she is the deity of accomplishment. Om Tare Tutare Ture Soha, please repeat. Om Tare Tutare Ture, Om Tare Tutare Ture, Ture Soha. Om Tare Tutare Ture Soha. Om Tare Tutare Ture Soha. So this is the Tara mantra. And then if you have sicknesses, this Tara mantra, if you recite it, it will be beneficial. Whether it's you or your children, if you recite the Arapatana mantra of Manjushri, it will help in developing your wisdom and to calm your mind when you are angry, and you should recite Om Mani Padme Hum, the mantra of Avalokiteshvara. It will be beneficial. So with this, we are done with the Dharma discourse this time.
Teaching completed. So I am looking forward to next year. Thank you.
Just as the brave Manjushri and some of the others to realize things as they are, also I dedicate all these merit in this best way that I may follow their perfect example. I dedicate all these roots of virtue with the dedication praised as the best by the virtuous ones, thus gone of 3 times, so that I might perform the noble bodhisattva deeds. Interpreters, please come. Please recite Om Mani Padme Hum mantra of Avalokiteshvara. Om Mani Padme Hum, 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 Om Mani Padme Hum. Can I have one kata? Sure. I was not ready. They told us to.
This 3 days teaching, all of us has been very fortunate to receive the Buddha Dharma teaching from you. We realize the great benefits of Buddha Dharma and ending suffering and attaining happiness, which leads to world peace. And today, all the participants of Asia teaching here would offer our body, speech, and mind to request Your Holiness to please stay with us always and stay healthy.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.